So today's lesson is all about how we use ratio. So what a ratio is, it's a way of sharing things out. So if you look at the sentence here, we've got blue, orange. That means the number of blue for every the number of orange, okay? So if you look at this kind of blobby thing, what we've got here is we've got some different counters within it, and we're just going to use the numbers. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 blue, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 orange. So if I was to talk about that as a proportion, we'd say that for every 4 blue counters, there's 12 orange. And that's what a ratio is. It's a way of sharing out or proportioning things. Now we can do lots of things with ratio. We can simplify a ratio, and the way in which we simplify a ratio is we can divide both sides by the same value. So here, if you look, because we've got 4 and 12, both of them are multiples of 4, which means that we can divide both sides by 4. And so if you've got a multiple of either side, you can divide them. So that would give you 1, because 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. 1 and 3. Now this is a special type of ratio. This is what we call a unit ratio. It's called a unit ratio because there's a 1 for one of the values. When you get down to 1, it means you can't really simplify it any further, or make it any smaller, really, I should say. That's a better way of saying it. So this we're going to refer to as a unit ratio. And unit ratios are really good and useful for things like currencies. So when you go abroad, you normally get an exchange rate. You get an exchange rate for how many euros you're going to get to a pound, or how many dollars you're going to get to a pound. And that's why unit ratios are good, because they look at one of something and how many of the other thing you're going to get. Now, common practice says that we keep them as whole numbers if we're simplifying them and making them nice, but you can equally have ratios of 1 to 1.2. So for example, I think the exchange rate at the moment for pounds to euros is about £1 to €1.12. It's not very good, okay? And if you look, we've got a decimal in the answer, but that's perfectly fine. That's a unit ratio as well, as an example. And this has got a decimal in it, whereas this is a simplified value with nice integer values. Okay, the next part, we're going to look at how we share out using ratio. And I've created a little acronym, which I find really, really useful when I'm sharing out using a ratio. And I use the acronym ADAM. And ADAM kind of tells me the process of how I share things out. So the acronym stands for add, divide, and then multiply. And I'm going to show you how we apply this acronym to our sharing out with ratio here of £56. Okay, so the add bit means we're adding up the 2 or more piles of ratio that we're trying to share out. So we're going to do 3 plus 4, which gives us 7. Because that means that for every 3 parts somebody's getting, the other person's getting 4 parts, which means we need 7 parts or 7 things every time we use and apply that ratio. The divide bit comes in, you look at what you're sharing out. So I'm sharing out £56 and I'm sharing it into 7 parts because that was the sum of the ratios. So 56 divided by 7 is 8, okay? Which means that I've got 8 blocks of my ratio. So the and multiply bit means we start off with our ratio and keep them in the same order. 3 to 4 is not the same as 4 to 3. So we have to keep them in the order that they are within the question. And then we're going to times both sides of our ratio by 8. So we're using the same principle as the simplifying and cancelling down. We can times both sides of a ratio by a constant, by the same value, and it keeps the ratio in proportion. So if I do 8 times 3, that's 24. And if I do 4 times 8, that's 32. And there is my answer, 24.32. And if you add them up, they should add to £56. So you could do that as a little check if you like. So 24 add 32 is £56. Okay, that's just to make sure you've got your calculations and you're working out right.